Et bonjour et ravi de vous retrouver pour cette session dédiée aux cas concrets d'entreprise.
Okay, nice to meet you again for concrete examples from the world of companies now. We have 3 companies with different models whose practices have evolved, and their ambition is to transform society in a positive manner. They're going to share with us their vision and also the challenges they're facing. As I was telling you earlier, we managed to invite stakeholders who are going to ask questions to these companies. It's essential to consult stakeholders before taking decisions, and also be sure they monitor what's happening. That's what we're going to do today in full transparency. We're going to have 2 stakeholders coming here so they can ask their questions directly. I'm calling now to the stage Maud Larochette, CFO and HR Director of Inside.
Voilà, bonjour. Donc, votre entreprise se définit comme je cite, une entreprise de deep tech qui permet aux organisations.
You are a company of deep tech talking to science, bioscience, and so they can use critical resources well. Now, let's call the 3 stakeholders as well. Alexandre Magnette, CO2 Strategy, Mélanie Guiton, and Julie Noirom. Welcome to the stage.
Alors, Maud Larochette, donc pouvez-vous nous présenter Inside et nous dire
Miss Larochette,
Business for Good.
Why business for good then? It sounds complicated, but it's actually easy. What we do is try to optimize. We offer optimization services so we can allow our clients, our customers to have a more efficient vision and usage of their resources. This is a very topical subject, and that's where we try and facilitate. We do this through our algorithms, but we also use AI and other more traditional methods. We do this trying to optimize clinical assays and so that they can reach the market faster, and also we try to avoid excess shipment for patient testing, so that we can allow companies to reduce their carbon footprint. We do this also in terms of energy, using the network. So depending on the weather in France or in Germany, we can make sure to exploit the energy of the sun in the most efficient manner. We are growing also exponentially, 40%. It's also about how we manage responsibly a company that's growing so fast. And we have many people working for us, so we pass from 20 to over 200 people, imagine. Now, I'll turn to Alexandre Magnette, co-founder of CO2 Strategy here in Luxembourg. And your vision is to decarbon companies. It seems your mission is perfectly in with Ms. Larochette. Donc, in a service company like yours, I think over 80% of emissions depend on purchases, energy, and transportation, especially. So, what are your ideas in these sectors? What are the concrete measures you're taking to reduce these emissions? Yeah, we have 75% of emissions connected to transportation, so that's our main field of work. This is all monitored, so we can call on bodies like yours to have some sort of reporting. When things are monitored, then it's easier to track the targets we set ourselves. Concerning mobility, we try to make people more aware, educate them. Concerning the buildings, we're going to move to a more passive building so that our employees can use public transportation to come to work. We try to promote remote working. We did this already before the pandemics. These are the measures we take. A second question, maybe? Yeah, so a company can act on their own carbon footprint, but you also act on the carbon footprint of your clients, of your customers. So how do your products and services have an impact on this? On average, in the pharmaceutical sector, we allow our customer to have 30% less in terms of shipping requirements for testing. That's a lot for us. It's really a lot. We also want to monitor all of this because the client requires it. So now that's the main figure, 30%. It's hard to know exactly what or how. We know how, but how much can we actually save in CO2 terms? Because we prefer renewables. That's more complicated. That's a more difficult task. But we do it more and more. And we allow companies, our clients, to do it. So it's an indicator that's still in the construction phase. It's a work in progress. Yeah, we're also considering our impact on business. It's not so easy to calculate these kind of figures. I see you have the label CO2 neutral. Carbon neutrality is hard to reach. That's clear. As a business, we'll always have an impact on environment because we need to go and see our clients. 80% of our income comes from abroad, so we need to move. We need human interaction, and we try to avoid moving as much as possible, and we compensate. We compensate what our emissions. For example, we plant trees in Belgium, and we're not alone. We ask for help as well. Not only in Belgium, but also in Guatemala and other countries in the world. Of course. And now, let me turn to Melanie Guiton, a researcher. You focus on the evaluation of the environmental impact of companies. I have a question concerning the demand by your customers. Do you think that in the solutions you develop, more and more of a demand for integration of environmental criteria is to be seen? Yes, I would say que nos clients, I think our clients are really motivated by this. There is a growing demand for showing how much CO2 is actually put out into the world. It's part of the selection criteria. we need to show that we are able to monitor these data. So that's a source of satisfaction for us. We optimize services and processes. We have PhD in mathematics who work on the optimization, and we want to make sure that our solutions are optimal. And we have a special department working on rationalization as well, but also sustainability, of course. So people are motivated to innovate, and how can we go one more step forward? How can we improve things even more? Of course, we have to take care of financial reporting. I am also a CFO, but all of this needs to be reported to the board, of course. We have our seat headquarters in Belgium, Louvain-la-Neuve, and there we have bodies that also work with local organisms. So we can see you have many things to do. You're clearly busy, as you mentioned. We're very interested in trying to understand the role of people in all of this. Julie Noirom, thank you for being here with us. You are the co-chair of the HR community in Luxembourg. And you have some questions on the relationship between HR and all of these criteria. I have a very practical question. Can you give us some examples of human resources management in support of your CSR approach? How do you motivate people to work on this? Some advice for our public, for our audience. We're very careful to recruit people who are motivated by our mission, by our vision, and so that helps a lot, of course. Of course, recruiting people who are already sensitive to these topics helps a lot. And apart from this, we try to create a company philosophy allowing people who are not employees to be welcome, to feel well, so that they have time to give back to the community. We have committees on green issues, on social issues. From the inside, we try to give back to the community. And we do Movember, for example, and we have this social end inside, which is taking care of all of these issues. There, we drive some campaigns, and people are free to take part. It's not compulsory, but they do it because they're pretty happy with these activities. Most people are very happy to take part. Thanks. I see. So it's really some encouragement for positive action. Do you think it's possible to integrate the consideration of CSR criteria into the performance evaluation of employees? Yes, it's definitely part of it. They need to be motivated to act in this way. And how do we do it? We try to make sure that performance is connected to values like engagement and behavior during our committees. So people are invited to display the right attitude also. They are invited to go in the same direction the company wants to go. They're happy to actually take part. And for example, when it comes to bonuses, we have a range of KPIs. that are used. So we can use, we set our own targets each year to try and reduce our impact. This is one of the positive results that's working. We see that it's working pretty well. Thank you. It's very encouraging. Okay, we have a little bit more time. I see you're certified in innovative human management. What is that exactly? Actually, we are a spin-off of the University of Louvain. I am certified indeed. I need to prove to myself that I was good enough, and this is about well-being, common well-being, business for good. That's basically it. Yes. Thanks a lot. Thanks to all four of you for taking part in this roundtable, in this exercise of transparency. It's, as you can see, we are in a rush, so let's welcome the next participants.
Merci infiniment. C'est donc un tout autre.
Thank you very much. And now we are going to invite around this stage very different companies. The first one has to do with caffeine. And I think when we come to CSR, it has been certified in their company. What else? You know who I'm talking about. I'm going to call Oliver Perquy from Nespresso.
J'appelle également dans la foulée le trio féminin avec Antonia.
And then three women. Antonia Argirova, Head of Advocacy and Action Solidarité Tiers-Monde. Léa Vogel, a student in the first year of the General Natural Sciences class at the Lycée Technique Agricole. And then Yvonne Weisflog, Head of the Waste Museum of the Luxembourg Center for Circular Economy. So the questions are probably going to be very interesting because we are going to talk about the three pillars we've talked about when it comes to sustainable development. But first of all, Oliver Perquy, can you explain to us why Nespresso is an inspiration when it comes to its practices in terms of sustainable development? Well, just at the moment when you talked about an actor, I thought everyone knows in the public who you're talking about. You don't need many explanations, but just to remind you, Nespresso is the pioneer in terms of portioned coffee. It was back in 1986, and since then our mission has not changed. We still want to be able to offer an ultimate coffee experience to consumers, and we do it now with 140,000 different coffee farmers. And today we employ 13,000 people in 86 countries, and locally we have 240 colleagues in Belgium and Luxembourg. And in the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, we have a couple people working in our boutiques, in our shops. Luxembourg is a very big market for us because it's a very well-penetrated market for us, Nespresso, in Luxembourg as well as in Switzerland. And we have about 1,000 professional clients, usually hotels, restaurants, and different business companies. So you asked me what my mission is. In order to be able to keep on delivering this ultimate coffee experience we need for the coffee industry to keep living. And today, the coffee industry, quality coffee industry is at risk. We need to have really high ambitions in order to answer this risk, to mitigate this risk. So first of all, I'm going to give the floor to Antonia Argirova. You're the head of Advocacy at Action Solidarité Tiers-Monde, and you're also a member of the Consultative Commission on Human Rights in Luxembourg. So we are probably not going to be very surprised if your questions are going to be about human rights. Yes, thank you very much. A first question concerning the living wages. As you know, companies have the power to reduce inequalities and put supply chains that are more resilient in place. For that, they give a decent salary, a living wage. So what is a living wage? It's different from the minimum wage. It ensures a living wage for workers, including suppliers. And the living wage, unlike the minimum wage, aids to provide the wage necessary for the worker and for his or her family to meet their basic needs, such as food, water, shelter, education, healthcare, clothing and transport, and to cope with unforeseen events. So that means to ensure a dignified life. So how does Nespresso view the issue of living wages, and how does it plan to introduce this concept into its supply chain? All right, for us, it's not really a question of how to implement it, because since the beginnings at Nespresso, we are quite unique in the way we work with coffee farmers, because we work directly with them. Most of big stakeholders in the industry, they have intermediates. We do not. We work directly with coffee farmers in order to have the best quality. Like I said, coffee is a risk, so we have to be able to find the best formulas, the best systems, so that coffee farmers are still working within our system, and we have to make sure that they are sustainable, that they have a sustainable life. So this is why we have to pay them sufficiently to give them right conditions of working. So since 2003, we have been working with new targets. We want to have the quality of a product. At the same time, we want to respect the environment, we want to protect the environment, and to make sure that the coffee farms we're working with have have living wages for their employees and workers, and also to make sure that when the farmers are coming of age, when they want to retire, their children are going to be motivated to go on working in their farms. So we have seen in Colombia, for example, that it's important for the workers to be able to have a retirement plan, and so that the younger people are motivated also to take up their parents' work, their parents' farms, and also important to integrate women in the farms and how they work. So you have these two examples, of course, but of course they are not only the farmers, but also our collaborators working directly for us in different countries. And for that, we have a number of initiatives. Two in particular, we guarantee wages that are continuous, even though workers are not coming to work for a prolonged time. And in case of legal problems, social problems, economical or financial problems, or mental problems, they have access to experts paid by the company. A third element, we also work with suppliers and service providers. And the most important thing in the selection of these suppliers and providers is a good wage for their employees, because it's not only about a financial wage, financial support for their employees, but also different type of support. More recently, in March, we have been certified B Corp, and it means that as a company, it is certified that we put the human being at the center of the structure. And I think it's in line with the different type of initiatives that have been made in this area before. And this shows the variety of support that can be made, and the development as well. Another question about human rights. Yes, it's a question more about climate change, fighting climate change, and right activities. Nespresso's ambition is soon to achieve carbon neutrality in its activities. So you mention strategies at Nespresso, such as tree planting or the use of renewable energy. So how does the company ensure that human rights, in particular economic, social and cultural rights, are respected in these strategies? Thank you for your question. Just like you said, we want to be neutral. We want to be carbon neutral by the end of this year. Carbon neutral means that between green coffee that is being produced in farms to the coffee capsule. So in order to reach this target, we have a lot of things we put a lot of things into place. We have been working for years on 3 big elements, and I think Maud talked about it as well. First of all, we have to be net zero in our operations, and then there is offsetting and insetting in order to compensate what we cannot reduce ourselves. For insetting is a very well-working solution. Why? Because planting trees in coffee plantations has a lot of benefits. Not only for CO2 reduction, but as well because having more trees next to coffee plants is nourishing, is feeding the earth and protecting the earth against erosion and different type of sickness and problems. So indirectly, we are also having a better quality of coffee. So it's not only having a better productivity, but also a better quality of the product, because the quality of the product means that there is a premium in the revenue of the producer, of the farmer. If we take the example of banana trees are a big advantage because it offers a lot of shade with their big leaves. So it means that there is a better quality for the coffee plants themselves, but as well are producing bananas, fruits, which is an additional revenue for producers. So we have a number of initiatives like this that are helping farmers' families in the revenue they can generate thanks to coffee. Yes, we can see that Nespresso is known for its insetting practices, has been known for its insetting practices for a very long time. So, yes, that answers your question. It's not a matter of treating precisely something, but really having a focus that is larger and having more people in mind. So that brings us to the next topic, because we're talking about regenerative agriculture. Lea Vogel, you're a student, first year in natural sciences at the Lycée Technique Agricole. Thank you very much for coming here, and thank you for being the younger voice here in this panel. What are your preoccupations regarding this pillar? And this is going to be your job later in this area. So we are waiting your questions. We impatience. The Arabica coffee plant requires very specific temperatures and amounts of rainfall as optimal growing conditions. This is a climate most found in the tropical highlands. This means that climate change could force the migration of Arabica coffee to even higher altitudes than where it currently grows. This would logically lead to territorial competition, especially with unused forests. How do you intend to prevent coffee from becoming a driver of deforestation in these areas? So, as I said, the coffee industry is really a risky industry. Recently, we've celebrated on October 1st the International Coffee Day, and we have our longtime partner George Clooney with an empty cup on a picture, showing that there is a risk. If we don't do anything, this cup is going to stay empty. And people have to realize that 60% of local coffee species that are at risk, endangered, and all the coffee that we need, all the varieties that we need in order to have the coffee we drink today might not be able to be disponible by 2050. So what I'm trying to explain, and that's really clear, is that with the climate change today and increasing temperatures, we have to go higher and higher on mountains to to grow coffee plants. And the problem is that the surface is always smaller and smaller, because the higher you go on a mountain, the less surface you have, the less area you have. So, of course, the Arabica, for example, is a coffee that is very vulnerable to climate changes, and it has to be cultivated in very precise conditions. And this is why we are working with a lot of agronomes, specialists and experts who are studying what are the best conditions in order to better protect the coffee plants, but also to be able to find the best mix of conditions, because the coffee mix can also help resisting diseases and climate change. Something else that we're doing is that we're trying to put a lot of effort in R&D. Why? Because we're trying to find coffee that is more resistant to sickness and to climate change, and at the same time a coffee that has more productivity, so it doesn't need as much surface to grow. When it comes to deforestation, of course, it's a very important issue. It's something that has to be fought. And I've talked about offsetting, insetting. I think that we are always trying to have more trees planted in plantations, around plantations, because it has more benefits for coffee trees and for farmers in order to reduce CO2 production as well. And since 2014, we have agroforestry plan. We've planted 6,000 trees, and we have a project, of course, on this. Another question from Leah, maybe. We know that agriculture is a key driver of landscape change, which in turn contributes to diversity loss and climate change. How well can regenerative agriculture meet the needs of your business model and counteract biodiversity loss and climate change in your practices? On the ground, how is this model received by farmers? In the introduction, I said that our mission is to offer ultimate coffee experience for the consumer, and we have been at the peak of innovation in our sector, in our area of specialty. And I think that we are doing that the right way. And I think today we have to be sure that we can offer a coffee to our consumer that has premium quality. In 2015, we have launched a new coffee from South Sudan, a country that was completely destroyed by civil war. And it is, again, in the news, as you may have read lately. And South Sudan has historically been a coffee-growing region and has been completely destroyed. And we have redeveloped this culture. We have built roads and infrastructures, and the former coffee growers have come back to this region. So in different regions that have been destroyed by catastrophes, by wars or climate events, it increased biodiversity. Because we bring them something, and at the same time we give our clients something more exclusive, more exclusive coffee. Thank you. It was very interesting, and when it comes to regenerative agriculture, this is exactly on point. This is the future, and I think 1/3 of soils are being decayed because of intensive agriculture. So it's one of the main problems we have today. Now we're going to talk about recycling and circular economy with Yvonne. So, Yvonne Weisvlog, you are the head of the Waste Museum in the Luxembourg Center for Circular Economy. And in 2025 in Luxembourg, we should not have any waste anymore. So we really have to force it. So remember this crazy time when we did not value waste. Now we do. It's a great museum. I invite you to go there if you haven't visited it yet. So what is your question, Yvonne? Thank you for the introduction. So 80% is your target for recycled aluminium in an Nespresso capsule. How much recycled aluminium is actually present in a currently unused capsule? And then what are your next steps to reach the target being 80%? The 80% is not a target. 80% is a reality today. 80% of our capsules are made of recycled aluminium. I mean, 80% of the aluminium used in our capsules is recycled. And today we have this capacity to do it. In 2009, in Belgium and Luxembourg, we launched a recycling and collecting system. So today in Luxembourg, in Belgium, you can either give your capsules back to the person delivering your coffee, or you can bring it to collecting points. There are dozens of them in the Grand Duchy. So it's quite easy today. So today we are able to recuperate about 1/3 of our capsules. Is it a lot? No, it's not enough. I'd say in 13 years it's not bad, but it's not enough. And our ambition is to make it even easier for consumers to be able to return their capsules. And we are convinced that in Belgium and in the Grand Duchy, the best system to do it is the BMC bag. Waste bag. And in Luxembourg, there are also triage centers that make it possible for us to recuperate the capsules, the used capsules, because we are convinced also that because in Luxembourg there is a real will to limit waste and to get rid of waste, not produce waste anymore. So we think that it will contribute to our ambition. And I think in Belgium we are also on a good way since 2013. We are convinced that we will be able to get to 100% of collecting used capsules and to recycle them 100%. And we can do it not only for our capsules but also for the others, because we're going even further than our own ambition. Thank you. My second question goes also in the same direction. Used Nespresso capsules are reintegrated into the aluminium value chain and find a second life in everyday objects resold by Nespresso. Wouldn't the consumer be entitled to feel left to return his used capsules without compensation when they are recycled and reintroduced into the Nespresso circuit? So, would it be possible to have a deposit for capsules? Right, when we talk about aluminium, we don't like to talk about waste because aluminium can be recycled. And we try to have partnerships in order to show how versatile aluminium is and to also encourage consumers to bring back our capsules. We have partnerships with Carandash for making aluminium pencils. We have also with partnerships with startups. We have sneakers like shoes made with used coffee. So what about your sneakers? Are they made of... No, mine are about made with the waste of wine, of grapes. So the question about the question you have about deposit is in order to avoid having waste in nature next to roads. We don't have that problem with capsules, but at the same time there are a lot of different capsules and materials that exist in our industry. So it's difficult to find a standard that would prevail for everyone. Now, we always encourage the consumers to keep their capsules on the side before they can return them. So we have the whole infrastructure for it. And what we have to do, our job, is to make sure that the consumers has the easiest life possible in returning the capsules. And I think that it would be easier to make recycling automatic. Thank you. Very well. We could go on with this discussion for hours because it's really interesting to hear what all these criteria are with sustainable development and so on. But the clock is running, and I have to stop the discussion right there. Thank you very much. It's very interesting to see how a big company like Nespresso can participate in sustainable development. And sometimes we have startups starting from scratch, and it looks difficult for them to do something. So I cannot imagine what it's like to have to transform the entire company, an entire company that has already been existing for a long time. So we will follow Nespresso and your story. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Now I'm calling the director of the third company, Innpact. Welcome to Paola D'Angelo, who is responsible for sustainability in the company. I'm also inviting on stage Monsieur Atata, de l'initiative pour la finance durable Luxembourg. And I will also welcome Martina Olbach, campaign officer, Greenpeace Luxembourg, and Karen Reuters.
I'm switching to English, actually, since all of you are more comfortable in this language. So, well, Innpact is specialized in impact finance. And Paola D'Angelo, you are, as I said, Associate Director and the Head of Sustainability at Innpact. So could you tell us more about your vision and achievements?
What was I? So presenting Innpact. We are an impact finance specialist. We are based in Luxembourg, and our mission is to facilitate the setup and fund management, let's say, accompanying impact initiatives that we set up. In a word, we want to be there where there is an impact objective to achieve. So we don't look too much at whether it is a fund. I mean, traditionally we've been setting up funds, but designing funds, but we are looking at any type of initiative that has an impact. That's what we want to transform ideas into impact.
Okay, very clear. José Godonou Atata, you are a stakeholder coordinator at the Luxembourg Finance Initiative. Thank you for being here. So your mission is, well, as an organization, is to raise awareness, to promote and help develop sustainable finance in Luxembourg. What are your questions today?
My first question will be, what differentiates really Innpact as an impact investing platform, service provider, with other service provider who has the core, the same activity?
Well, you mentioned the word, who has at the core impact. I think that's the biggest differentiator that we have. We only focus on impact initiatives, and that's really all that we do. As I said, it could be investment funds, we can advise foundations, any initiative that has an impact mission, we are there to help. So I think that's a big step to decide that you only focus on that type of initiatives. Another point is that we are a B Corp. We chose to be a B Corp, and that means that we believe that business is a force for good. I mean, it can be used to do good, to society, to the environment, and that's what really animates us. It's impact investing can and does produce financial revenues, but also impact on people and the planet. Sorry, I need to look at my notes because I have so many things in mind, but another thing I think that is really different for us is that we try to walk the talk. So we tell our clients, you need to embed impact into your governance, into your structure, and that's what we do ourselves. By being a B Corp, we make sure, not only by being a big corp, but we made sure that our governance is such that it embeds impact.
We're going to talk about governance a bit later, but yeah, clearly interesting.
Maybe just one thing. Historically, as I said, we started with setting up funds, but what I wanted to hint at is that the requests and the requirements from investors change. And so, you start with microfinance investment funds, then you turn to impact funds at large, to platforms. There are different ways to achieve impact, and we are there to do that, to make it happen.
If you have a second question,
yeah, I have a second question. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. My second question is following just what you just said, what you just mentioned. What do you think today is really needed to make the impact investing become mainstream? Because it's not so mainstream at the moment. And what do you think, with your expertise, that's
the key question?
The key question, yes. Well, I would look at it from this point of view. So you have investors who are already convinced. They're the impact investors. They do it because they believe that their investment can generate, as I said, impact. And then you have the ones who are not convinced. They are more traditional, or they are risk averse, and they are told impact investing is risk, basically. You're taking too much risk. So you have to look at the question from these 2 points of view. How do you convince, or how do you help these two categories of investors that they're doing the right thing? From the point of view of the ones who are already convinced, I would say, they need to have, they need to feel that their impact objectives are being reached. So they need to have strong governance that supports whatever entity they are subscribing to. They need to have metrics, KPIs. They need to make, you want to make sure that there is a structure and an infrastructure that allows them to have evidence of the impact they are creating with their money. And as I said, you need a very strong and formalized structure, regulation that everybody can tap into and compare, so everything is kind of benchmark and comparable. And I think it's also very important that there is liquidity for those investors who, investing in impact, it takes a long time. It's a long-term engagement. So your money is blocked for a long time. And what you want to probably do as an investor is to also focus on, or change. I mean, your interests change. So you want to be able to get back your money and be able to invest it somewhere else, but without giving up the impact that you've started with the money. So I think that's very important. It's to make it, to democratize. If you want impact investing, you need to look at it from all of these perspectives.
But as you say, it's about measuring as well, to make it
measuring
credible, and that leads to our next questions, because now, let's take a closer look at this sustainability finance. Martina Olbach, you are a campaign officer at Greenpeace Luxembourg, and your organization published a report last year on sustainability funds, calling for careful attention to green finance, well, greenwashing finance, I think. So we are listening to your question.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. Well, in order to achieve the sustainability goals, we need a lot of money, and the United Nations estimated that we would probably need, over the next years, approximately $2.5 trillion per year. Now, that sounds like a lot of money. However, some estimations from the Global Sustainable Investment Alliance suggest that every year we invest now $4 trillion into sustainable projects. So that might lead us to the conclusion that we are on a good path to achieve the sustainability goals. However, I think we all know that this is not the case. And just to mention the example of climate change, carbon emissions are on a record level rise. We are far away to reach the Paris climate goals. So in your opinion, how do you explain this obvious mismatch between sustainable investment and the impact that they should create, and which is obviously not taking place?
Maybe it is not. I mean, it is clear that there is a mismatch. It is clear that there have been. Maybe there's been some errors or some targets have not been met, but what we choose as Innpact to look at is what has been done and what is being done, and what can be done. That is even looking at the future. If I give you the example of the microfinance investment funds that we have, what the company has created, I wasn't there yet, but some of them have been created since 2005, 2009. So these funds have been there 10, 15 years. And it is undeniable that they have created impact. They have created jobs. They have reduced carbon emissions. They have strong results in emerging markets. Now, you can see that it's public information. It's on the investment funds. They publish their own impact reports. And yeah, you may say this is just a drop in the ocean. There is so much more to do. But I think we are, sorry. I think we. Yeah, it's maybe focusing on what has been done and what can we do. So I think maybe I would look at it more from the point of view of the impact frameworks and impact metrics and a coordinated effort by governments, by promoters, institutions, and markets to speak the same language. So I think that something gets lost in measuring impact because different companies or different entities, they might have their own interpretation, their own metrics, and so that makes it difficult to evaluate or to capture all the impact that is, for me at least, it is generated by these funds. And there will always be criticism. It goes from people who criticize microfinance for the way for the interest rates, for example, but then you have more recently others. I read recently an article by someone, I can't remember the name, but from Triodos Bank, who was criticizing the very concept of SDGs, saying that SDGs are too fragmented and that we should look at something else because you cannot just pick and choose which SDG you are going to work on. So what I'm saying is, I think there is a need to coordinate the efforts and speak the same language through numbers, through examples, through metrics and KPIs. And I think we're also quite fortunate because in Luxembourg, it is a small country, and there is proximity with the regulators and with the government. And there is interest, there is the money, and there is the structure. There is the government who is actively participating in promoting a structure and the infrastructure that is conveying impact investing. And there is the CSSF, the regulator, that is taking a lot of actions to make it true, to make sure that the different agents in the market report in a transparent way. So accountability, or the wish to create accountability, is there. So as I said, I would turn around the question and say what has been done and what is being done, and then look at what can be done better for the future.
Yeah, second question.
Yeah, my second question, I wanted to come back to the to the fact that more and more private and institutional investors want to invest sustainably. That they want that the money is being given to good projects which provide a positive impact. But we also hear that investors are very skeptical where the money is actually flowing into. Yeah, you mentioned the report which we published last year, which shows that the so-called sustainability funds do not actually provide more money for sustainable projects. So the risk of greenwashing is imminent. My question to you is if you believe or if you think that an ambitious sustainability due diligence legislation for corporations could help increase investor confidence for sustainable investments.
Absolutely. As I was saying earlier, I mean, I think investors, they need to feel safe. They need to know that money is invested safely, and that regardless whether it is in funds or it is in corporations, Nespresso or a small company. So definitely due diligence is important. And once again, that is across the board, that everybody buys into it and subscribes to it. And there you need really governments, you need regulators, but you need the market participants to accept that that's the way forward, that people equal investors, because there are always people behind. Even if they are institutional investors, you always have people behind. So their interest is to have transparent reporting on where the money is going and what it is producing.
Mm-hmm. It's true that it's still difficult to read. And
but it's a general effort in this industry.
For the sector. And
there was a conference a few days ago in Paris, again, to talk about a coordinated effort to, I repeat myself, but it's speaking the same language. Let's not use different metrics and indicators. Let's try to find a way that everybody can compare funds or companies. And
that will be the condition for mainstreaming.
Yes, that would be, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, in impact finance, we often talk about the environmental or the social pillars, but governance is an aspect that is somewhat overlooked and sometimes, overlooked, we say. And Karen Wouters, you are managing director or acting CEO, I should say. It's acting CEO at Lila. So you would like to discuss this matter.
Thank you. And ELA is, our tagline is the voice of governance. So governance is important to us. And Paola, I was already excited that you already articulated the importance of the G in governance. And I was going to say that, we use ESG as a measure for sustainability. And the E and the S are emotional. And everybody talks about them. But we don't hear about the G, the governance, very much. And we really see that as the foundation. The G is a foundation of a good house to build upon. And if we want to make impact, we need to have good governance so that the house doesn't fall down and we are successful. So my question to you is two-pronged. And first, maybe to look at it from the side of your investors. What kind of questions and interest do they have in governance? What's important to them? And how do you assess governance in your investees and measure it?
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, I would say governance is something that is close to our business at Innpact, because we are advisors to board of directors and investment committees of funds. So there is a whole team of board advisors who is supporting boards to make sure that their governance setup is always state of the art. And so, I mean, looking at it from the point of view of the investor, you would think, maybe investors don't care so much, but they actually do, because as you just said, they know that without strong governance, the whole house would crumble down. And I think it's becoming more and more a fact, and it's more and more known, maybe because we mostly work also with large development finance institutions, and they themselves have a very strong governance internally, so they want to see that replicated in the funds they invest to. So I would say what they ask is really, is there a governance structure? Is there a board? Is the board accountable? How does the board ensure to be accountable? So do they know their impact strategy? Do they know the risk they're taking? Is there a skill matrix? How does the board decide who should join the board? Is it just the shareholder nominating them, or is there something else that they're looking for? And then, of course, now more and more committees, ESG committees, sustainable impact committees. So that's what we see. Shareholders are much more clever than one would think, or like looking more ahead to this, and seeing the importance of governance. As for the investees, we at Innpact, we do not deal with the investee. So, I mean, from our perspective, the investee would be the beneficiary of the funds that lend money to them. But it is embedded in the policies of funds. The investment advisors need to make sure that the investees have a sound governance as well. And of course, they need to look at which market, which country the investee. When I say investee, it could be a microfinance institution or a project. Where are they? What is the anti-money laundering regulation like there? Is it strong enough? So yeah, shareholders ask a lot of these questions. And on the other side, you have boards trying to be closer to shareholders. There are shareholders events. They organize calls, discussions, and reporting. And reporting is challenged and it's scrutinized. So yeah, I mean, there is absolutely recognition that governance is a fundamental part of any initiative. So it's big G around the ES.
And I was just hearing you also do training for your directors.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
I think that's a very important piece as well.
Yeah, it's a very important piece. Yeah.
And now let's take it the other way. You mentioned it's important to walk the talk.
Yes.
And I think you have a very clear purpose. So how do you ensure within your board that every decision that's taken is actually taken in light of that purpose? What kind of governance structures or tools do you use to make sure that happens all the time?
Well, we're still quite a small company. I mean, when I started, we were 8, now we're 50. So it's still manageable that people in the company are involved and know what happened. So I think the board, we changed, or we took on the B Corp challenge in 2015, and from there we have made sure that also our governance is stronger. So, for example, we didn't have a board, now we do, and the board is actually chaired by an independent director. We have a management committee that reports to the board, but again, the lines are very short because we are a small company, and there is a lot of communication. So that's important as well, transparency, communication. So the tools are meetings with the teams and discussing things and continuously updating and improving the mission of the company. Everybody, I'm sure, in our company knows what our mission is. But I mean, more practically, the mission has been included in the Articles of Association. So there is a clear declaration of the mission, of the intent. We also have an ESOP, an equity shareholder participation from employees. So employees can invest in the company, and that creates an environment where it's not only that they put their money where their work is, I would say, but it's also that they consider us, management, accountable for the mission of the company and for what we do. So that's a big thing for us. But another thing that is very practical, we have a theory of change. We have developed a theory of change among us. I mean, we have discussed with what it is that we want to achieve, and having a theory of change means that you have a plan. So you have a long-term plan. How am I going to be implementing it, and is this company going to be sustainable enough to implement it? And then we have an eligibility committee, for example, another governance element, we screen our future clients or prospect clients and projects based on a number of eligibility criteria that we have decided to comply with.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm afraid we have to stop there because we are exceeding the time, but thank you, Paola,
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here. I think it was really important to take a look at this sector in particular. We know it's the driving force behind the transition. So it's, if we want, as we said before, to change the scale and the impact. So that's key. Dire merci plus globalement à l'ensemble des parties prenantes et des entreprises qui se sont prêtées au jeu aujourd'hui.
Thank you all stakeholders for coming here today and for talking to us so that we can contribute to an economy that's becoming regenerative. Thank you. Thank you to all stakeholders for coming on stage. And I remind you that you are the guardians and the actors of this change towards a better future. Thank you.